Hello wine people, in this video I will talk about wine labels. I'll explain what the information on the wine labels mean and what you should expect from the wine behind the label. On the end I will answer 10 WSET Level 2 in wines exam questions. So if you want to learn a little bit about wine, or you're preparing for your WSET exam, or you want to change the world of wine with us, this video is for you. And please consider subscribing. So let's go! So what we will be talking about in this video is what is geographical indication, or short GI. Why is GI important? Old versus new world wine labeling. Old and new labeling terminology in Europe that was changed in 2009 or added in 2009. Wine labeling information that you can see on wine labels, and I'll explain, I'll show you the new and old world wine label, and then on the end we will answer 10 WSET example questions. What is geographical indication, GI, and why is it important? GI or geographic is a geographical indication of where the grapes are coming from, and usually where the winery is located and where the wine is made. Why is this important? My opinion is that this geographical indication is the whole philosophy on which the wine is based on, and that is that where the grapes are grown and where the wine is made is specific to that place. It cannot be replicated anywhere else in the world. That's the idea. So when you taste, when you smell the wine, and when you taste it blindly, you know, just based on how the wine looks and smells and tastes, you can guess, you can have an educated guess where the wine is coming from. That's why this geographical indication is so important. It is like, from the other point of view, is also like a brand. You know, when you hear a recognized country, region, appellation, this gives you a brand recognition, and you know, it helps you to decide, you know, if you want to buy the wine. Size of geographical indication matters. Geographical indication can be very small, like a single vineyard. It can be very large, like a big region. Regarding the size and quality, usually smaller geographical indications like single vineyards, because of their small production, the idea is, you know, in order for them to be profitable, they need to create a premium product, premium wine, in order for them to sell it for a premium price, because the production is so small. On the other hand, bigger geographical indications, because of the choice that they have for a bigger production, they can produce more price-friendly wines where the quality is average to good, but they can also produce premium wines with super premium prices. Old versus new world geographical indications and labeling. What is the big picture is that the old world is very traditional, very strict. There's rules and regulations, and that is all reflected on the labels. And old world wine labels are more appellation driven. It means in most cases, you're not going to see the grape variety on the label. You're going to see appellation, a name of the region or a village, and then you should know what is the grape variety and what's the style of wine that you should expect. When I say style of wine, I mean, you know, flavor characteristics, structure. New world is more consumer friendly labels. It means there's more information on the labels about the wine, where it's coming from, how it's made, and you're always going to see the grape variety on the label. Old world Europe wines, location, grapes, and rules. Like I said, very strict. It means location dictates which grapes are going to be grown and how the wines is going to be made in the vineyard, and also how it's going to be treated in the winery. So it means, for example, you want to have a winery in Burgundy, most probably you're gonna grow Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. All right. And then there's also strict rules in the vineyard how much grapes you can have per hectare. In the New World, let's say in California, you can grow any grape variety that you want, and you can produce as much grapes as you want. Old World, like I said, it's more strict, and every terminology is reflected on the label. New World, there's more freedom with grape varieties and production. So now this, when you know this information, this can be beneficial for the consumer and the producer, or you can see it as a more restricting point of view. Okay, so please comment below what kind of style, what kind of labels do you prefer? European labels, usually with appellations, not grapes, or New World wine labels with grapes, and plus it can have a appellation or geographical indication. I personally enjoy more European style European labels, because you know the appellation, the region, the sub-region, the appellation, the single vineyard gives me indication of the grape varieties and the style and quality and price of the wine that for that particular wine. Where in the New World, I mean, there's still guidance. You still, you know, based on the of the geographical indication, you still have guidance. You know what you should expect. But I just believe that European wine labels, and this is for people that know a little bit about wine, is more informative. There is two geographical indication, two new labeling geographical indication terms that are introduced in 2009 in Europe, and the idea was to have the same labeling terminology across whole Europe in all the countries. All right, and these two terms are PDO and PGI. What you also need to understand that next to these two labeling terms that were introduced in 2009, the traditional old labeling terms still exist, and so the producers can choose which one they're going to use on their labels. What is the difference between PDO and PGI? The main difference is PDO is more strict. PGI is less strict with rules and regulations. PDO wines need to be 100% from the designated geographical indication area, where PGI is 85% of the grapes. PDO are usually smaller geographical indications, where PGI are usually larger PDO geographical areas. PDO need to follow the strict rules and regulations regarding grape growing and winemaking. PGI have more freedom, so they have their traditional, they can have also their maybe traditional grapes that they produce, but they can also experiment with other grapes that are not allowed for PDO in that region. Here you can see the old PDO and PGI traditional labeling terms in classic wine regions like France, Italy, and Germany, and you can also see what is the new labeling terminology for this labeling terms, if they choose to have them. In France, it was AOC, now it's AOP. For the PGI in France, it was Vin de Pais, now is IGP. Italy, it was DOC, DOCG, now is DOP. It was IGT, now it's IGP. Spain, it was DOC, DO, DOC or DOQ, now is DOP. It was Vino della Tierra for PGI, now is IGP. In Germany, it is Qualitätswein and Prädikatswein, now is PDO. For PGI in Germany, it was Landwein, and now is PGI. Okay. And honestly, in many cases, I see producers on the wine labels. I still see the traditional labeling terms. Here on this picture, you can see the labeling terminology for Italian classification. So starting from the generic wines up to the PDO. So a generic wine is a wine without geographical indication. And also what you need to know before, these generic wines without geographical indications, usually they just have the name of the country on the label. Before, they couldn't put the vintage and grape variety on the label. I don't know why. Now they can, which is also very good. Before, this generic wine in Italy, it was called Vino di Tavola, now it's just called Vino. IGT wines, or Indicazione Geografica Tipica, or PGI wine, now it's called IGP. In Italy, it's a little bit specific for Italy because they have two designations for PDO wines. It is DOC, which is less strict, and DOCG, which is more strict. One thing that you can understand from this is the DOCG producers that have more strict rules and regulations, they don't have incentive to put DOP on the label because it doesn't make a point of difference between a DOC and a DOCG producer. Where DOC producers, they have incentive to put a DOP on the label. Here on this picture, you can see on the left New World Wine label. On the right, you can see the Old World Wine label. The main difference between these two labels is that on the Old World Burgundy label, you don't see the grape variety. You see the appellation, which is Macon Village. And then, you should know that Macon Village, it's a Chardonnay. Let's just go through some of this information. So on both pictures, you're gonna see the name of the brand of the producer, Jax, and on the European one is Vincent. Special designation, reserve. Like I said, this kind of labeling terminology is not directly connected with rules and regulations. So in one case, it can be just marketing. On another case, it actually means something to the producer. The way that he treats wines in the vineyard and in the winery. Wine type, this is the main difference. You can see clearly that is Cabernet Sauvignon. Vineyard designation, this Jax Estate Vineyard. This indicates that the wine is from a single vineyard. Alcohol content is 14.1. Alcohol is a great indication of ripeness of grapes, and then you know, if the grapes are riper, they have potential to produce wines with higher alcohol. If the alcohol is lower, can indicate that is a cooler climate, for example. Vintage 2012. Vintage indicates when the grapes are grown, not when the grapes are picked. So for example, in a case of ice wines can be produced in, let's say, 2012, but grapes can be picked in the following year, 2013. Estate bottled, again, this is another something that cannot mean anything. It can be just a marketing thing. Fanciful name like Ghost Story, it is something also that This fanciful name also is something that is very common on the New World wines, and this is like a brand difference that you can make between the labels. Appellation of origin is St. Helens, Napa Valley, where the grapes needs to come from. On the Old World, you can see the vintage again, producer, that domain, the Champ Brûlé, that is a estate wine. Appellation, region where the grapes are coming from, is Macon Village, and this is you need to know that this is a Chardonnay. Alcohol content is 12.5, which indicates a cooler climate. Okay, so you let me know which label you like more. Other labeling terms that you can find on labels is Viles Vignes, or old wine. This is also a labeling term that you can see on European labels, which is actually not regulated by law. So, but the idea is when you see Viles Vignes, or it's a French term, or old wine, especially in the United States with Zinfandel, the idea is that older wines produce less grapes but more quality grapes, and that the wine is of a higher quality. But again, this is not regulated by law, so there's you need to take it with a gram of salt. Late harvest indicates that the wines are that the grapes are picked later in the growing season, which will make the grapes richer in sugar. But from late harvest wines, you can produce dry, semi-dry, or sweet wines. Noble rot is the indication that the grapes used in the wines are affected by noble rot, which will give a specific aroma. And usually noble rot grape varieties that they are super concentrated with sugar and are used for sweet wines. Ice wine or ice wine are usually produced in cool climate regions like Germany and in Canada, and they have very specific rules when the grapes can be picked, when they're frozen, and ice wine will always indicate that the wine will be super sweet. Oak in the New World wine labels, you're gonna see maybe a term like a reserva or oak age, or a description where it's gonna explain that the wine was aged in oak. In Europe, for example in Spain, these terms are Crianza, Reserva, Gran Reserva, which shows that the wine was aged in oak. In Italy, for example, it is a Riserva that indicates that the wine can be aged in oak. Organic usually means that the grapes are treated in an organic way without pesticides and chemicals, which is very important. And back label, there's a lot of information on back label, especially for New World wines, which can guide you in the style of wine. Okay, you ready for the questions? Now, when you have all this information, what can EU, Europe, GI indicate on the wine label? Where the grapes are coming from, which grapes can be used, how long does the wine age before released, all the above. Correct answer is D, all the above. Geographical indication outside of Europe have more freedom to experiment with grapes and winemaking than EU geographical indications. True or false? Correct answer is A, true. Which is correct? GI does not protect the name of the region. All GI are the same size. GI shows the wine quality. EU PDO labels have more strict rules than PGI. The correct answer, I know it's a little bit confusing question, but the correct answer is D. EU PDO labels have more strict rules than PGI, like I explained. Question number 4. EU generic wine labels can have grape and vintage on the label. True or false? True. You remember when I said before they couldn't have, now they can. Which one is Italy POD labeling term? AOP, DOC, G, IGP, Vino. The correct answer is B, DOC, DOCG. Which one is Spain PGI labeling term? Vino, Reserva, Vino della Tierra, Vin de Pais. The correct answer is C, Vino della Tierra. Which one is France PDO labeling term? DOCG, Predicates Wine, Land Wine, AOP. The correct answer is D, AOP. Which one is correct? Vintage is when the grapes are harvested. Ice wine indicated that wine is sweet. Viles Vignes indicates higher quality. Late harvest wines are always sweet. The correct answer is B. Ice wine indicate that wine is sweet. And let me explain. Vintage is when the grapes are harvested? No, it is when vintage means when the grapes were grown. Viles Vignes, like I said, indicate it's a labeling term that describes the viticulture, but that doesn't mean that it affects the quality of the final wine. Late harvest wine, like I said, later picked grapes, which can be used for dry, semi-dry, or super sweet wines. South Hemisphere vineyards are picked before those located in the North Hemisphere. True or false? I didn't tell you this in the video, but Southern Hemisphere is 6 months ahead of North Hemisphere. So Southern Hemisphere wines are picked before 6 months before North Hemisphere wines. Which one is German PGI labeling term? Landwein, Qualitätswein, IGT, DOC. The correct answer is A, Landwein. Thank you so much. Wine people, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please consider subscribing if you found this video informative and you want to see more videos like this. This will help us to grow our wine channel and change the world of wine forever together. I'll see you in the next video.